Good evening and welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think Arran Airs is a type of basketball shoes.
That's a good one.
I like that one. You know, for the longest time, mate, Nike did put out, it was a T-shirt, I think it was, and it had Mr. Bad Airs. And it was a Nike Airs thing. But yeah, there you go.
Nice.
I will share it for the next week because it actually was a thing, I promise.
I was just thinking future merchandising. We need to get some shoes with our logo on it. We call them the Arran Airs.
Yeah. Hey, I'm down for that. I saw some on Shark Tank tonight. They didn't get picked up, so maybe we could invest in that.
or maybe we could just buy some tigers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we need some tigers.
But I haven't watched that, but I'm sure everybody else who has will laugh. So I just get the obligatory drop because I won't be watching that. But I will be watching.
No. Wait, go back. You are probably the last person in the world not to watch Tigers. And I'm going to say it is just mind-blowingly insane. It's brilliant.
You know, I just really refuse to watch TV shows that make people famous who have no business being famous.
What, like Sunderland?
Well, I mean, Sunderland, that's, you know, a real documentary about a real football team that's actually happening. I mean, these Tiger people, I mean, I'm not sure they're not just actors.
Oh, no, they are not just actors. It's a documentary.
They're hardly footballers, too.
Oh. All I'm saying is where you have a show where the least talked about thing is someone's arm being ripped off by a tiger. That's a crazy show.
Yeah.
Maybe spoiler alert on that. I don't know.
What do we have on tonight's show, Aaron?
Well, thank you for the introduction, Phil, because on tonight's show, it's the best of the best. It's all you need to do is listen to your most trusted football source, that's us, and then watch these games during this barren footballing time. It's 540 minutes of the most famous, fantastic footballery. It's our favorite football games of all time. We've got 3 each. I think we're going to do one apiece. They're Premier League, they're internationals, and I think there's a couple of others thrown in there for fun. So this is going to be fun. If you're missing football, you can go and look these up online and you will not regret your choice. Go, guys. Let's go.
All right.
Oh, wait, but first...
You know, make sure you guys head on over and follow us on any of our social media accounts. You can find us at Across the Pitch. Just search for that. That's where we usually will interact with you guys on match day. But since there is no match day, you can find us retweeting funny memes, stories, transfer rumors, upcoming episodes, and as well as some news about us being on the radio in Ohio. Is that right, Phil?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Tonight, we made our radio debut, and that was on Cuyahoga Valley Radio. The Cuyahoga Valley, I probably did that as bad as a town in England on the pronunciation there. But they aired our recent interview with Jordan Clark at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. They're going to be airing an episode that basically every week we're going to send them one of our best episodes from the past week. They're going to air that every Friday night at 7 p.m. And then Crooked River Radio is one of their partner stations, and they're going to be airing us on Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays during the daytime, and we'll get back to you on those hours. But we're really excited that we have some broadcast partners now. Who would have thought we'd get to say that one day?
I know. How much are we paying them?
Oh, we're not paying them anything. They're not paying us anything either. But it's we're building each other's brands, and there's some real nice guys, Eric and Pat over there, who I've been working with, and I think it's going to be a great partnership, and we're excited to have our shows on the radio now.
That's mental. So I must admit, I like being big in Ohio. That's great. Where is Cuyahoga? Did you say it was?
It's near Cleveland and Accrington, or Akron, like the NFL Hall of Fame. Oh man, when I drive by where the NFL Hall of Fame is in that type of area, and yeah, so they're going to be playing us. Oh.
That was great. The Accrington. That's brilliant. That's one of your best slip ups yet, Phil. I think that's great.
Yeah. What Matt was saying about social media, you might also be interested that I did post on my personal Twitter. There was a YouTube video, all of the songs of What's the Story Morning Glory by Oasis being ranked by a kid who wasn't old enough to have been born when the album came out. At one point, he's like, "Oh yeah, I had never heard this song before."
What? Well, I mean, these songs are going to live forever, but yeah, that's weird.
But that's what happens when you have football podcasters that start delving into music. So that's why we only talk about TV on this show. Back to football tonight, and we've each picked our 3 favorite matches. And who wanted to start off we're going to go in and we're each going to give one at a time?
I think so, yeah. Why don't we just I think we all have international matches, don't we? So why don't we start with our favorite international matches?
All right. Arran, you want to do the honors?
Oh, I absolutely do. Yes, I do. Long-time listeners of the show will recognize, will know what I'm about to talk about, but this is my favorite international match by far. Okay. There's been some cracking games, and of course I'm talking about Australia, but there have been some cracking games. There have been some famous failures. Let's not talk about Arran in the 2002 World Cup preliminaries, but this one was directly after that. So around about that time. So let me put this into perspective here, okay? 2002, 2003, through to around about 2006. That was what's known as the golden generation for Australian football. We had amazing players like Mark Schwarzer, who you might know, Harry Kewell, Mark Viduka, even Brett Edmonton, if you want to put him in there as well. Australia relocated from Oceania, and then we relocated to Asia, but we also were based in London as well because we had so many players playing in the European leagues that it seemed like it might be good to have our home friendlies in London. It's bizarre. Also, around about that time, it's fair to say that Australia was having quite a golden or a purple patch, if you will, in sports in general. I mean, we were the Rugby World Cup holders up until that year. Actually, I think England beat us that year. Don't want to go into that. We were top of the world in cricket. We were top of the world in tennis. It was brilliant. Australia, it was a wonderful time to be supporting sports. But there was one thing the English were guaranteed to beat us at every time, and that is football. Soccer.
The only sport you name that people actually watch.
All right. I'm not going to bust. All right. Send your hate mail to Phil at Across the Pitch. Anyway, so here we are. We'd just beaten the English in the cricket and the tennis. They got one back with the rugby, and here was the one thing where they were guaranteed to beat us, and that was football. Were they? No, they weren't, because our golden generation lined up against in a friendly. I got to say, this is a friendly. This is not a World Cup qualifier because they're different conferences and all that. This is just a friendly. They lined up in Upton Park, and this is not an English side to be sneezed at either. This is a full-strength English side with the likes of David Beckham, Michael Owen, Frank Lampard, your mate over there, Matt, and Wayne Rooney on international debut. I think he was on debut for this year. So it was a full-strength side until the second half. But what happened was basically Tony Popovich and Harry Kewell got a 2-goal lead before half-time. The English fans were ropeable. I mean, we just played all over them. England looked like rabble, which they generally are. 2-goal lead at halftime. Sven-Göran Eriksson was the Swede who was the English manager. He decided in his wisdom to basically side out, let's take off the experienced heads. We're going to go and put in this experimental team of youngsters. And it was met by resounding boos. Man, there could have been a riot at West Ham that day. In the end, the second half was 1-1. I forget who scored the English goal, but Brett Edmonton scored for Australia to wrap it up. Basically, it was an upset for the books. I was there. I shut my mouth, and everyone who's heard this podcast before has heard this story, because honestly, they weren't real happy about losing to Australia in football. It's not like sort of handshakes and, let me buy you a drink. It was like, go away or I'll stab you. Just a little addendum to that, Sven-Göran Eriksson famously said after the game at a press conference, if he'd known of the depth of rivalry between Australia and England, he might have done things differently. Might have.
Aaron, I just want to bring this up.
That would be like the U.S. coach being like, we know the depth of rivalry between the U.S. and Mexico. We'd have brought out our starting lineup.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
What did you say?
I said, I just wanted to bring this up, Aaron. The goal scorer that day for England was Francis Jeffers. And if that name doesn't ring a bell to any of you, that's because he wouldn't go on to make another appearance for England. So that was his first senior call-up, first senior appearance, and his first senior goal. But here's a little fun fact. He did end his career playing for one Accrington Stanley in 2013.
Yeah. Wow.
Only making 7 appearances for Accrington Stanley, scoring 2 goals. So he had more goals at Stanley than he did in his international career. Aaron, what do you think? What do you think it was like for those Australian footballers to get a win, not only over England, but over England at Upton Park, which Upton Park is kind of, a famous ground, or it was a famous ground up recently. What must have been like for those guys?
Amazing. I think probably, if you were to have a chat to those guys, that might have been the highlight of their career, honestly. Like the majority of that team went on to the World Cup in 2006. But I would say it was the highlight of their careers. And it stands out in my head as well. You do have to understand the depth of rivalry between Australia and England. It's not like it's not like England-Germany, as Darren pointed out to me. England-Germany genuinely hate each other. With Australia and England, it's sort of like, oh, God, it's my little brother. So here's the context, okay? In Australia, when we're playing England in sports, we call England the old enemy.
So that's cool, man. So, I mean, this was huge for them then. That's awesome.
It was.
That's a great international game.
With you and Darren going back and forth and all these different sports like cricket and rugby, I really have kind of grown to understand this just from hearing you and Darren banter with each other.
It is good banter. It's friendly banter. We're not going to go and ride in the streets. That was probably a bit of hyperbole from me. If we lose to one another, we're going to be sad for a while. I'm going to say a couple of months minimum.
Well, boys, I will go next with my international pick. And I went with a World Cup game. But before I tell you which World Cup game, I want to kind of set up maybe just the brief history leading up to this. So 2002, the U.S. has their best ever appearance in a World Cup. They make it to the quarterfinals. That's where they surpassed Mexico in the round of 16, 2-0. Quarterfinals against Germany. We're a handball call away from going to the semis, but that's where the 2002 World Cup comes. 2006, we think we have all this momentum going in, and 2006 is an absolute disaster with 2 losses and a draw in the group stage. We only take 1 point. We finish dead last in our group, which consisted of Italy, Ghana, and the Czech Republic. So 2010, we're going in, you know, and it's this feeling of excitement, feeling of being, you know, ready. And so we get the first game against England and we draw 1-1. Then we get the second game against Slovenia and we draw 2-2. And so we go into the third match against Algeria and we need a goal. We need a goal to send us through, especially because England was leading Slovenia 1-0, meaning we were going to finish third in our group on 3 points, behind England on 5 and Slovenia on 4. And so throughout this game, I mean, I remember this game vividly, sitting in my apartment in Phoenix. My oldest is now sleeping up in his crib. It's nap time. I'm watching this on the TV. I'm home alone. My wife's at work. Beginning of the game, the U.S. almost lets an early goal in. Algeria hits the crossbar. Throughout the game, you know, Josie Altidore goes close. Clint Dempsey has a goal disallowed for a controversial offside call, which felt like just was summing up our World Cup run of 2010. And then in stoppage time, we get Tim Howard collects the ball. He throws it out very quickly to Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan's running up the pitch with the ball. He passes the ball just outside the box to Josie Altidore. Josie Altidore crosses it into a wide open Dempsey in the middle, and you're thinking, this is it. Dempsey takes the shot. It's blocked, but Donovan, who has followed the play the entire time, puts the ball into the net, 1-0 in the 91st minute. And then just that baseball slide into the corner, everyone piling on top of him. Here comes Jay Demerit jumping on top of the pile. I mean, I just remember screaming in my apartment, just
that was awesome.
that we were going through. We were going through to the next round. Man, best international game I have seen in a long time.
That was such a fun World Cup in South Africa with the Vuvuzelas. That was around the time that I ordered mine off of eBay. The one that I like to blow in Aaron's ear and annoy him at the It was such a good World Cup, and if I remember correctly, it was the first World Cup held in Africa. You know, and there was all this just kind of wondering what was going to happen, what was the atmosphere going to be like. And it was amazing. It was a fun World Cup. That was the World Cup where you had France kind of fall apart, you know, and there was all the bickering and the infighting and then they're refusing to play or practice but then you throw that US game on top of it. And I mean, it was just, you know, when you go from you're in stoppage time going out of the World Cup to Landon Donovan putting the ball. I mean, I remember you can still go on YouTube and just Google, you know, America reacts to Donovan's goal and just see all these clips from around these watch parties and in bars of this immediate low of Dempsey's shot being blocked to this explosion of joy at Donovan putting the ball into the net.
Josie Altidore, though, I think you absolutely nailed him where it was just wide. I mean, that's his career summed up, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Well, and then what? It was 4 years later in the 2014 World Cup, Altidore pulls up injured in like the first couple minutes of that opening game. I mean, He's just up and down career, but no, it was a great game. And it's still one to this day that I hear Ian Darke's call in my mind. So, what about you, Phil? I know you have a World Cup game.
Yeah, I have a World Cup game, and that of course I'm a fan of the U.S. national team, not anywhere on the level that you are, Matt, because I've kind of accepted that we're probably not ever going to win the World Cup. So every World Cup, I kind of adopt a team, if you will. I mean, I root for the U.S. to win whenever they inevitably lose. But I sort of adopt a team at the beginning of each World Cup. And the team that I normally adopt is a team that I think has a chance to win, but isn't a favorite per se. Like I'm never going to go and root for Brazil or Germany or something like that. Like in 2010, Netherlands was the team that I picked that time. But in 2018, I really got behind Belgium, and I just loved everything about Belgium. I was certain they were going to win the World Cup, and they almost proved me right. I think they were the second best team in the tournament, and the best part about this game here is when Belgium won this game that we're about to talk about, it won me bragging rights over my brother from down under for 4 years as it secured victory in our World Cup bracket.
Yes. Okay.
And this was a game that it really started off, and it looked like Belgium was going to crash and burn much earlier than they were even expected to. Now, just to give you an idea of the team that Belgium brought to the World Cup, just looking at in terms of Premier League players that have played in recently or currently in the Premier League. Eden Hazard, Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Vincent Kompany, Thibaut Courtois, Jan Vertonghen. I mean, and that's not even everybody. Musa and Dembele was on the pitch, didn't even get into the game. Their opponent, who is very underrated, Japan. They certainly have a number of guys that are in Spain, Germany, Italy, but in terms of Premier League talent, best Premier League guy on the Japan roster is Southampton legend Maya Yoshida. So compared to those guys we just mentioned off, you can imagine that Belgium was probably a bit of a favorite in this game. First half went 0-0, and then right after halftime, Japan came out, got a goal in the 48th minute, goal in the 52nd minute, and all of a sudden Belgium is sitting down 2-0. It's looking like Japan is headed to the round of 8. Well, what do we have? Belgium finally makes a comeback. Jan Vertonghen, 69th minute. Fellaini gets one at the 74th to the equalizer. And then I'm terrible with this name. Nasser Chadli. Thank you, Aaron. He got the winning goal at 90+4 to send Belgium through to the round of 8. Matt has said it a million times. When a game starts off, your team goes down 0-2. They come back. They win 3-2. There's nothing better than that, unless that third goal happens at 90+4 in an elimination round of the World Cup. And wins me bragging rights over my brother from down under by eliminating him from the bracket.
Oh, that's right. That's what happened. Oh, I was wondering how you got bragging rights over that, because first off, Japan are one of the best teams in Asia behind Australia, of course. But you might have downplayed how strong Japan are a little bit there. because I think their domestic competition is the best in Asia. Like, these are the guys that win the Asian Cup over and over and over again, you know?
Yeah, the G League is very good. And certainly, I mean, they have a lot of guys that are actually in either Spain, Italy, or Germany. Like Shinji Kagawa is probably their top player. He plays in Spain. Matt, would you say Kagawa is Japan's top player, or who would you say?
Oh man, their best player. I would actually say
number 10 at least. I mean, that's just kind of what I'm going off of. And he plays in the first division. I mean, Osaka, he plays in for Hertha Berlin, I believe.
Oh, yep.
I would actually say maybe Kaisuke Honda was up there as one of the best players.
I agree with you, Matt.
He played, he played at Milan, CSK Moscow, Vitesse. He's at Botafogo now.
Well, he didn't start. He came on.
He came off the bench, right? Yeah. I mean, that team, I think, was just it was a sleeper team. I think when you have a team like Japan going into the World Cup, you never really think of those guys because most of their team isn't playing in the quote unquote big leagues. Right. But they were so well drilled as a team. They were so together that I mean that's how you go 2-up on a team like Belgium. But outside of that, I mean that last goal, Chadley's last goal, where Japan gets the corner, Courtois comes out, grabs it, quick pass out to I believe De Bruyne. He dribbles up, passes it out to Carrasco, I believe, and then Carrasco plays it in. And if I remember correctly, Lukaku like dummies that ball perfectly, and Chadley just passes it into the back of the net. I mean, you can't talk about a better way to just put yourselves through than a counterattack off a corner. I mean, those kind of plays, and that team was just unbelievable, like you said, Phil. The talent on that Belgium team,
fun team to watch because they could just really. That was, when we talked about it, the Champions League last year, where there was a couple of those big comebacks, and I think it was Liverpool and Barcelona, and we said that they kind of just flipped the switch and went into like a hurry up offense, like in basketball, and Belgium did that in this game, where they just kind of flipped the switch and went into that hurry up offense around the 65th minute.
Yeah, well, as we finish this up, as we end kind of this international games, I just want to say, like the 2010 World Cup, where going into it, you didn't know, all right, South Africa, how's this World Cup going to be? I feel like 2018 had that same thing. Like, we're going into Russia. There's all this weird political stuff. How is this going to be? And the 2018 World Cup, again, was another fun World Cup. I thought it really was, especially because they had the introduction of VAR. So how was VAR going to be handled? And I thought it was great.
How about Germany crashing out?
Oh,
yeah. Should have won.
Germany crashed. I mean, it was just great. Russia on the run they went on, Japan on there. I mean, it was just good overall. So
who saw that coming?
I know, right? Well, let's keep this moving, boys. And I'll go next since Aaron, you started.
Okay. So I was going to follow up with one of the best 3-2 games, but okay, I'll keep mine. Okay.
Well, I was the only reason I said that was because I know me and Phil kind of went with the same idea of going international or a national team, domestic, and then an international game. So I know both me and Phil have domestic games. So I'll go with my domestic game first. And I had to go with a 2-2 draw from the 2019 USL Championship season on September 28th, New Mexico United 2, Phoenix Rising 2. The reason I chose this game was because we had just come off our first loss in 20 games to Fresno. I'm sure you guys remember that. We were down. We were sad. We were going into this game against New Mexico. All we needed was a result to clinch the Supporter Shield. And very quickly, this game starts off in a bad way. 4th minute, Devin Sandoval gets on the end of the ball, puts New Mexico United up. We go halftime down 1-0, kind of question marks. What's happening with this team? Then we come out 53rd minute. Schmidt scores in the 53rd minute. Now we're down 2-0. We've just let a defender score. And I remember just thinking, my gosh, what's happening? 2 games in a row. And then the super sub himself, Joey Calistri, comes on in the 62nd minute.
Yeah.
8 minutes later, he gets the goal. In the 74th, we're down 1. Really, we're pushing the game. There's this feeling going around of hope. Spencer's on the field at this point. Farrell comes on, and then it seems like, okay, it's just out of reach again. But in the 90th minute, after some chaos in the box, the ball just sets up perfectly for Calistri. And what does he do? Absolutely smashes it into the goal. And I just remember thinking, I don't care if it's a draw. We clenched the supporter shield. We did it at the home of New Mexico United. And boys, I know you remember this, but what happened afterwards? Solomon Asante invites all the traveling supporters into the away dressing room, and there's the team celebrating with the supporters the fact that we had just clenched this regular season championship. And it was awesome sitting at home watching that game.
When I saw your list, my first thought was this wouldn't have been a game that I would have immediately thought of because it was a draw. But then when I saw it, I was like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, I can't say it was really hard not to pick the last live soccer game I went to, which was a 6-1 drubbing of.
Yes, wasn't that great?
But I don't know. There was just something about this game. Joey Calistri coming off the bench, getting a brace, winning, clenching a piece of silverware on your opponent's home field, which is a theme I'm going to revisit in a little bit. I mean, it was just awesome.
Can we do a shout out to Van der Plas for his appearance?
Yellow scarf for the locker room. We love you, Michael. But yeah, that scarf. We get scarf trades, but stick it in your pants next time or something. The yellow scarf in the locker room. Oh man.
I'm just gonna say, stick it up your ass, mate.
There you go.
All 3 games that I picked have some sort of significance where you're clinching or advancing or something like that. So I like the idea that you have that as part of that, because I think that every, there's so many exciting games, but then when it's an exciting game and it clinches something meaningful or happens at a special moment for a team, that really is important, because I believe Belgium that game into the round of 8 was also the furthest they had ever advanced to the World Cup, so that was definitely significant for them too.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, you know what, Phil? That's a great segue. If I can do mine next, because if you want to talk about significant games, you're not going to find a better one than this one. I'm sorry, Phil. I know I've cut you down here, but this is possibly the greatest end to the greatest Premier League season ever.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not a fan of this team, but I've got to say, I sat down and I watched every moment of the last 90 minutes. And I'm talking about the end of the season, 2011 to 2012 in the Premier League. So going into the last game, which are all played at the same time, mind you, just to add that little bit of drama, you think that the Premier League would be above some sort of Broadway stage, but here we are, everything to fight for. Both Manchester clubs are on 86 points. So Manchester United, 86, Manchester City, 86, goal difference of 8 goals. Manchester City, all they needed to do was beat Manchester United's result in their game. You couldn't have picked the worst games for the end of the season, because it looked like going into it, it was just going to be A W next to Manchester United, a W next to Manchester City. Manchester City wanders off with the trophy. But here we are. So we've got Manchester City in a match against Queen's Park Rangers, who we haven't mentioned much on this show. Queen's Park Rangers are deeply into relegation fights. So they are playing for their skins, for their lives in the Premier League. And Manchester United playing against Sunderland. So there you go. You've never seen anything like this, okay? You've never seen an end of the season like this. This goes down to the 97th minute. It was voted as like the greatest Premier League season ever. Let's see what happens here. Manchester United goes ahead. Wayne Rooney puts them ahead against Sunderland. Pablo Zabaleta scores for Man City. Everything looks good. Man City is in the box seat. All they need to do is draw or, perhaps win. So heading into halftime, Joey Barton gets sent off. Now, Joey Barton, don't have a lot of love for him, but he took a terrible challenge on Aguero, got a straight red card. See you later. It was deserved. Off he goes. I don't think he ever fronted up for a game again after this until he was like up for Fleetwood Town. Or Fleetwood Brown. What did we say it was? It doesn't matter.
Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood, that was Fleetwood Black, isn't it? Blackpool and Fleetwood Town.
Oh, yeah, from that April Fool's joke.
That was a good one. I looked at that and I was like, the fuck?
I had the other one planned, and then I saw that. I'm like, oh, no, this is too good. I'm going to do this instead.
So here we are. Man U's up. Man City's up. QPR are down to 10 men. Titles won, basically, at this point, didn't it? Oh, no. Oh, no. 2 goals for QPR. I can't remember who scored them, but all of a sudden, Man City are like, oh, holy shit. The expectation of winning the league for the first time since 1968 is like, oh, God, we're crumbling under pressure. What the hell are we going to do? Absolutely incredible. The Manchester United game finished first. There were cutaways to the scene at Old Trafford there, and you could see the fans were cheering in the stands over there. The title was theirs. Oh, but no. Eden Dzeko, he goes and equalises in the 91st minute. It's 2-2. That's okay. Manchester United, they're still okay. All of a sudden, there are nerves over there at Old Trafford. The City ground is absolutely booming. They can feel something coming, and you better believe it. Oh, it came. And if you haven't heard this, you've never watched a single game of Premier League in your life, because you will always hear Martin Tyler screaming, Aguero! over the commentary, as in the 95th minute, I beg your pardon, Aguero scores a absolute screamer. Sends the fans into elation. QPR are down on their haunches. They can't believe they've lost it to an absolute very last minute goal. Manchester City win the title with seconds to spare. It was their first since 1968. That was incredible. There's even an addendum to this, right? So early in December, Wayne Rooney and a couple of his friends jetted off to Ireland for, a golf game. They ended up hitting the bars and were subsequently suspended for one game by a furious Alex Ferguson. They ended up losing against Blackburn, who were relegated that year. They ended up losing that match, and guess what? They lost on goals. They lost the title on goals. Well done, Wayne Rooney, you freaking knobhead. Just one other little thing about that.
That's a great way to tie that back in. That really makes the story right there. Is just having that little Wayne tidbit. I think we maybe need to add a Wayne watch along with Jose watch.
Yeah. One other thing from that 2011-2012 season was that it was the first time in 10 years that all 3 promoted clubs avoided relegation. The clubs that went down, interestingly, were Bolton, Blackburn, and anyone want to have a guess at the last one?
Sunderland.
Wolves.
Yep. Well done, Matt.
Dead last.
Yeah, absolutely dead last in this season.
So, Aaron, are you looking at the table from that year? Don't look it up.
I am now. Oh, wait. Yes, I've got one more tidbit from that. Thank you, Matt.
Wait, I got a little bit, and maybe this is where you're going. Since you're looking at the table, Phil, you're not.
I'm not.
So, Phil, we know City finished first. United finished second. Any guesses on who finished third?
Yes.
Probably Chelsea.
No.
Arsenal.
Arsenal finished third. What about fourth, Phil? Who finished fourth? You had to take a guess.
Chelsea.
No, it wasn't Chelsea. Spurs finished fourth. Now, what about fifth, Phil? Who do you think's finished fifth that year?
He's looking it up. He's cheating.
I'm not looking it up. I mean, was fifth Chelsea? I mean,
no, it was not. Chelsea finished sixth, but finishing fifth that season was the mighty Magpies, Newcastle United. Talk about a crazy table.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Arsenal won their last game. Tottenham lost theirs. So on the last day of that season as well, we also had St. Totteringham's Day.
All right.
Well, where did Liverpool finish? Like eighth?
They finished eighth. And then you had Sunderland finish 13th. I mean, this was just an interesting. Now you look at it's kind of interesting to look back, but that was crazy. That was a great game, man. If you don't hear Aguero, yes, you're right, Aaron. You have not watched a Premier League game. All right, so that's 2 for me, 2 for Aaron. Phil, what's your domestic game that I know you picked?
Okay, my domestic game is it's certainly it's a very important game in Phoenix Rising history because it's the game that sent them to the championship game. It's a game where they won the Western Conference Championship. It happened at one of our arch rivals. That was, of course, Orange County. That game, it was just special to me for a number of reasons beyond just the obvious. One was the game opened up. I think it was in the second minute that Chris Cortez scored a goal. That ended up being Chris Cortez's final goal with the Phoenix Rising. So a bit of a special moment there. Didier Drogba, he scored in that game. I believe, did he score in the championship game or was that his last goal with the Phoenix?
That was his last professional goal.
Scored in the championship. So yeah, so that was his last professional goal. So I mean, you have 2 Phoenix Rising legends and 1 world legend scoring their final goal with the club, and for Drogba, his final goal of his career. And then it was just an intense and physical game. I've reached a point in my life where, I might get upset or disappointed or frustrated with a game. Rarely do I actually find myself angry when I'm watching a sporting event. I was downright mad watching this game. I mean, not that this is extremely physically violent, but I just remember at one time the captain's armband being ripped off of Drogba, and it's just you don't normally see that type of thing. It was just. It was so much intensity from both teams. Everything was laid out on the pitch. It came down to the last minute. Phoenix ended up taking it 2-1, but it was one of those games where until the ref blew the final whistle, I don't know if I took a breath the last 20 minutes of that game. You could cut the tension with a knife.
Absolutely. I think it was probably one of the most physical games I've ever seen, honestly. And I've watched Stoke, okay? I've watched Stoke play. That took out Chris Cortez. I think that was the end of his career as well at Phoenix Rising, wasn't it?
hurt his hamstring, and that was a hamstring injury that lasted into the following season.
I don't think he played again for Phoenix Rising after that. I could be wrong.
I don't think he did. I don't think he didn't play in the final.
Right, he hurt his hamstring in that game, and that was a hamstring injury that he was still battling at Christmas time when he went to Thailand.
Right. Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that was. You know what my favorite memory about that game was? Celebrating on the field.
Did you go to it?
I did not, but watching all those guys storm the field, and then they all the players go back into the dressing room and then come back out, and it's almost like we had this whole trophy presentation planned out ahead of time, and it just happened, where all the supporters were surrounding the trophy and they had to kind of rope off the area, and it was just great, man. I mean, what a memory! That was
planning to go, but a couple of my friends decided to get married that weekend, so yeah.
First trophy in Phoenix Rising history, right there.
Yeah, it is.
So,
it absolutely is.
I mean, huge.
Phoenix Rising, and are you talking about the franchise or like the expanded universe, if you will, of Phoenix Rising? Like when they were talking about Arizona United SC, like
I think even going back, Arizona United SC or Phoenix Wolves, I don't think won anything.
So
this was our first piece of hardware. That's and fantastic. It wasn't the last because we took one in 2019 as well. And whenever 2020 starts up, we will take that one too.
Probably the first piece of hardware in Phoenix soccer history, period.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, my indoor team did win our season one time, but we just. So, Phil, why don't we have all started out. Why don't you finish us off with our last round here? What's your third and final pick?
All right. Well, my third and final pick, I think that you guys probably figured I had to get an Accrington Stanley in here.
No, I didn't. I didn't see that coming at all.
My favorite Accrington Stanley game for a number of reasons is the second to last game of the regular season last year. Accrington Stanley 5, Plymouth Argyle 1. And actually, all 6 goals in that game were scored by Stanley because the one by Plymouth Argyle, we felt bad and gave them an own goal at 90 plus 3. But it was an important game because, one, we were still in a relegation battle. Plymouth ended up being the final team relegated. And that game secured Stanley's spot in League 2, made sure that they didn't have to worry about going to Portsmouth and winning the following week. It started off a 20th minute penalty kick goal by Billy Key, which we did not know at the time it ended up being Billy Key's last professional goal because he retired. Last goal with Accrington, last goal at the Wham Stadium. Then we had and correct me because I'm about to use a hockey term here, a natural hat trick by Sean McConville. He scored the next 3 goals in the game, 36th minute, 43rd minute, 51st minute. Luke Armstrong capped it off in the 66th minute to really put it away and make it 5-0. And that game, it was just everything came together. It was, Stanley knew it was the game they needed to get to win the season. Key and McConville, there have not been 2 bigger names for Stanley over the past 5 years, really stepping it up. And then, like I said, the natural hat trick by McConville, not something you see in association football very often, where you have the same guy getting 3 goals in a row and the other team not scoring. And I mean, it was just really, to me, the signature game of the season for Stanley last year, and like I said, it was just it secured them another year in the league. So that was huge.
Was that the one that sunk Plymouth? If you know where I'm going with that.
It was their iceberg match.
Hey, you know what? I don't think there is a term for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I don't think there is a term for 3 goals in a row scored by the same player. I mean, there's hat trick, obviously, but if it was like a goal scored the other end, then the player who scored the first goal scores another 2. I don't think there is a term for a natural hat trick, as Phil put it.
Yeah, you mean just a player scoring 3 in a row unanswered?
Yeah.
No, I don't think. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like there's the golden hat trick, which is where you score with your left foot, your right foot, and your head. But
I haven't heard that. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I swear I've heard the commentators call it something before, and I just it's something that happens so much more often in hockey that's why I know natural hat trick is what they call it there. I swear there is a term. We'll have to get back and put that on social media because I know there is a term.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably a question to put out there. And if anyone knows what a 3-ball hat trick in cricket is, can you let me know as well? Because that's got me thinking. I don't think there's a term in cricket either. Anyway, I digress.
All right, Aaron, take us home with your final match here.
Okay. All right. Probably not exactly one that would stand out in most people's minds, but certainly stood out in mine. And Phil, you were talking earlier about a 3-2, go down 2 goals, come back with 3. That's the way you win the cup. That's how Arsenal won the 2014, the 133rd final of the FA Cup. Arsenal hadn't won silverware in over 3,000 days. It was a terrible drought for us, but here we are versus Hull, heavy favourites to win, and we go 3 goals down in 8 minutes. And it could have been 3 within 15. It was a miserable quarter. Oh, my goodness. It was just awful. Hull started, they came out strong. They knew they probably didn't have the fitness of Arsenal. So, we're putting this game to bed early. And do you know what? They almost did. Right up until, the 17th minute. And then Sandy Cazorla, who I think is probably one of Arsenal's most underrated players. If it weren't for injury, he would be legendary status in Arsenal. I digress. He gave us a glimmer of hope in the 17th minute. So, we've had 3 goals before 20 minutes. This is a cracking game in front of almost 90,000 people. Incredible match. Anyway, it was 2-1 up until the 71st minute, and then who should come to our rescue but one of our greatest defenders, Laurent Koscielny, heads the ball in the back of the net, boom, off a corner, bam, 2-2. Arsenal in the ascendancy. All of a sudden, Hull are like, oh, shit, now we need to press. And I'll tell you what, for the rest of that game, for the next 20 minutes, this is end-to-end stuff. There was no defending involved whatsoever. It was just like, all right, we got the ball, we're going that way now, lads. All right, off we go. And then Hull would pick up the ball and they'd do the same thing. There was crosses galore. There were strikes on goal. There were terrible challenges in midfield. It goes into extra time. And I've got to say, poor old Hull had played their hearts out for 90 minutes. If that had been a Premier League game, they would have been like, you know what, we're okay with the draw. Arsenal would have been like, yeah, we probably could have done better, but that's all right. They played well today. All right. Extra time. This is a cup. This is silverware. I can't remember when Hull last won the FA Cup, but I'm going to say it was sometime in the 60s. Let's just put it over there. Arsenal, famously through Olivier Giroud, who tried to backheel, hurt his hamstring in the meantime, passed it back to Rambo, Aaron Ramsey, my namesake, and Ramsey sits in the back of the net. Arsenal win 3-2. breaking that whole silverware duck. It looked very, very improbable after 10 minutes, but here we are. They went on to win it again the following year as well. So well done, Arsenal. That was my favourite Arsenal match in recent years.
Oh, yeah.
So I just got to bring up, because you mentioned something that caught my, it just got my curiosity going, and that was the last time Hull City won the FA Cup. And the last time Hull City won the FA Cup was never. They have never won the FA Cup. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Their best finish was 2014 when they were runners-up. In fact, I mean, this Football League Cup, they were semifinalists. Football League Trophy, runners-up. Watney Cup, runners-up. I mean, these guys are always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Oh, bless you, Hull. I don't have any hatred for Hull. I think, they did really well that one season. That was that season, I think, wasn't it? Or maybe it was the season before, where they just sort of run away. And after 10 games, they're in third place. Then everyone's like, who the hell is this Hull? I think they stayed up that year, and then they got relegated the following year. It was that difficult second album.
Yeah, I think their biggest downfall was when they brought in Josie Altidore on loan, and he scored one goal for them. So,
but he came close,
which is the same amount of goals Josie Altidore scored at Sunderland. But that's just neither here nor there. Josie Altidore.
I did look up the hat trick stuff, and Arran, I will tell you that. Hat trick, the term did originate from cricket in 1858 for taking 3 wickets with 3 consecutive deliveries. And then in terms of the soccer terms, here's what I found out is so, Matt, what you mentioned, at least according to Wikipedia, what you mentioned that the right-footed goal, left-footed goal, and headed goal within one match, Wikipedia is calling that a perfect hat trick. Then apparently in Germany and Austria, there's a term Lupinranier. I'm not even gonna, which is a flawless hat trick. But this says it has to be 3 goals in a row, all within the same half. And then in Netherlands, they call that Zuivier hat trick, which is a pure hat trick. But hockey is the only one that seems to mention that the natural hat trick where the halftime break thing doesn't matter. So that's what we have on that. But Arran, it does all go back to cricket, like you're mentioning.
I've made a complete and utter ass of myself, and I apologise to my cricketing fans. Of course, a hat trick is 3 and 3 balls. What the hell am I talking about? Okay, thanks, Phil, for correcting me. Someone who doesn't follow cricket. Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
All right, guys.
I was just reading off Wikipedia.
Well, since I watched the cricket match.
Well, I'll finish this up here, guys, because we're getting down to it here. We're just over an hour. So my last game is the 2019 Europa League final. No, I'm just joking. It's not that, guys.
Yeah, man. Stop.
Oh, man.
My favorite match.
I wouldn't give that kind of props to a sorry team.
Well, I mean, it was 4-1, but that's neither here nor there. My favorite match is the 2012 Champions League final. Chelsea, Bayern, 1-1. Chelsea win it on penalties. It was hard not to just pick the entire run because Chelsea was just constantly playing the underdog throughout this run. I mean, they were able to finish first in their group. They drew Napoli in the round of 16. They lost the first leg 3-1. Then they won the second leg 4-1 in extra time. They went to Benfica. They scored. They won 1-0, 2-1 at home. Beat Barcelona in the Camp Nou, sending them to the finals. And I mean, here you were Bayern Munich just dominant during this time. Neuer at top of his game, Philipp Lahm, Jerome Boateng, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Toni Kroos, Aaron Robben, Thomas Müller, Frank Ribery, Mario Gomez. I mean, these guys were just the epitome of the best team in Europe. Not only that, but we're playing in their home stadium. And so I remember watching this game, nervy game, and it felt just defeating when Thomas Müller scored in the 83rd minute. It felt like that was just it. And then Chelsea get a corner. Juan Mata goes over, puts in a ball, and Drogba just gets his head to it. And he gets this little push from Jerome Boateng. And he talks about how that little push gave him the extra power needed to get the ball past Manuel Neuer. So it goes 1-1 in the 88th minute. 88th minute, we go to extra time. And the extra time, there's a penalty given. Drogba, I believe, accidentally takes down Robben in the box. Robben steps up and Cech saves it. We go to penalties. I mean, this was just, you go, Mata misses his first one, Lahm nets, Gomez nets, Neuer nets, and finally there's two stopped, and Drogba here puts the ball down. It's the last kick of the ball that would, for a while in Chelsea blue, and he just puts it into the back of the net. And I remember just running around my house, screaming, we won the cup. And a little bit later down the road, Drogba, ends up in Phoenix. After a game, I kind of make my way over to where the players, so at the Phoenix Rising Stadium, there's a walkway that the players have to go through, essentially, where the fans walk in order to get to the dressing rooms, and they block it off. And so after the game, I'm kind of over there, and Drogba comes by, and I just remember looking at him, and I say, "Thank you for Munich." And he just looked at me and smiled, and it was just like, dude, man. And so that's been one of my greatest memories as a Chelsea supporter.
That could have quite have possibly been the best Bayern Munich team out there. I mean, Neuer, Lahm, Boateng, Schweinsteiger, who got a yellow card in the second minute. I wonder how much that affected the game, knowing that if you got sent off, you're done. But then again, I mean, Chelsea had a solid squad. I mean, Peter Cech in goal, obviously saved the two right at the end, Schweinsteiger being one of the goals that he saved. But even having a look at your bench there, I mean, Fernando Torres, who was probably one of the most forgettable signings you've had, he was subbed on in the 84th minute, got a yellow card in the 120th minute, didn't take a shot.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, and he's the guy that sent us through at the Camp Nou. He gets that ball one-on-one with, who was their goalie at the time? Victor Valdez, and passes him by. But this was a Chelsea team too that, like, going into it, I mean, so you had John Terry was out due to a yellow card, red card in the semifinal. You have Jose Basingua playing at right back. David Luiz is playing injured.
Who
Gary
also
Cahill
as well.
Right. You have Gary Cahill playing injured. You have Ryan Bertrand playing the left wing position, who is now he's a left back by trade. He now plays left back for Southampton. And then you bring on Florent Maluda, who was kind of on his way out, but was a great guy. Fernando Torres. I mean, look at the bench. You have Oriol Romeo, who is now playing at Southampton. Daniel Sturridge, who's out of a contract.
Yeah,
and then you had Roberto Di Matteo,
that's
caretaker manager.
Yeah,
caretaker.
He won the Champions League, and they didn't renew his contract the following year.
No. So he won the Champions League and the FA Cup that year. They signed him, made him the permanent manager, and then he got sacked the next season. And the fat Spanish waiter came in, and we won the Europa League Cup in 2013 against Benfica with Branislav Ivanovic scoring the winning goal in stoppage time.
All right. I wouldn't say that was the best Champions League final of all time. I am still going to defer to Liverpool versus Milan 2006. But
I thought you were going to say Liverpool.
Oh, that was a great Champions League. Yeah, Liverpool Milan was just a great game overall. Outrageous.
Also, I'm surprised you didn't mention the famous Stevie Gerrard slip.
We don't have to mention that. They, you know what? I mean, it's tough. We don't know what's going to happen with this Premier League season that's currently ongoing. I will say that as much as it pains me, those guys definitely deserve it, but we'll see what happens. So,
which guys?
Liverpool deserved that time.
To hear it come out of your mouth there, mate. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Well, boys, that's all I got.
You guys came up with some fantastic ones.
Look forward to our next episode together, lads.
Yes, dude, I agree with you, man. This is a good way to get away, reminisce on good footballing experiences of the past, and just get away and kind of, block out what's going on in the world. And that's what sports is meant to be. A time where you can just cheer on your team and not have to worry about anything that's going on, unless you're a Tottenham fan, and then you just have to worry about the fact that you're somehow going to bottle it. So
until next week, lads.
It was good, guys.
And to my brother from down under,
my mate from Stay 48, and Mr. Wizard over there.
Man, it was great talking with you guys tonight.
And I just wanted to, I did just want to say, one, I love both of you guys, and stay safe, and you and your family stay safe. And a special shout out to Sydney, who is a hero out there working on the front line. And also just wanted to tell all of our listeners to stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside. We'll all get through this and get back to football. And one other thing I did want to mention is if you guys didn't have a chance to listen to episode 99, definitely take a chance, take a minute or actually take an hour, because that was a long one, to listen to that, because we really, with that one, took some great clips from unreleased shows and a really good reflection of everything that we've done over the past 2 years. And definitely take a listen on episode 99 and give you a good summary of what we've done over the past 2 years if you're a new listener to the show.
I tell you what, it blows my mind, Phil, that there we are at 100 plus episodes now with this, and 2 years in the books. Wow, who knew? Let's keep it rolling, lads.
And we're on the radio now.
And we're on the radio. Hey.